Good afternoon. This is Quintus Curtius. It's November 15th, 2025. And the title of this podcast is going to be, You Have No Right to Turn Away. You have no right to turn away. And I will explain what I mean by that here in just a minute. You know, the British historian Thomas Carlyle, well, he was a historian, essayist, and composer of many different types of writings. But he wrote a letter to the American intellectual and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson in August of 1842. And in that letter, he wrote these words, which I will read. A man has no right to say to his own generation, turning quite away from it, "Be damned." It is the whole past and the whole future, this same cotton-spinning, dollar-hunting, canting and shrieking, very wretched generation of ours. Come back into it, I tell you. Now, what does this sentence mean? What is he referring to? Well, let me give you a little bit of background. Emerson was a transcendentalist, so-called transcendentalist philosopher. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into his writings, but they were concerned with very ethereal and otherworldly ideas. He was dealing with abstractions. His writings dealt with the realm of abstractions, the realm of ideas, rather than the realm of the here and now and the concrete and the practical. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, per se, because there's a place in philosophy for those types of explorations, just as much as there is a place in philosophy for a discussion of moral ideas, ethical ideas. You need everything. However, what irritated Carlyle about Emerson was his refusal to bring his head down from the clouds and to concern himself with the practical and the very real daily struggles of the average person, or the refusal of Emerson really to deal in a comprehensive way with the injustices of his era, of his time, of which there were many. This was 1842 in the United States. And we had a lot of problems back then. In many ways, it was a divided country. Okay? And what Carlyle is saying, in effect, is that a man who purports to be an intellectual or a scholar cannot just hide from the realities of the era in which he lives. He can't just bury his head in the sand. He can't just bury his head in his books and pretend that the injustices and the atrocities and the terrible things that happen around him in his era are not his concern. To do that, I think, Carlyle would say, is an abrogation of the scholar's responsibility. It's a abrogation of his duty. Because if you are an intellectual, if you are a scholar, if you are a man of letters or learning, it almost feels like a hypocrisy. It almost feels like a form of cowardice to just sit back and say, I'm going to put my head down. I'm not going to concern myself with what goes on around me. I'm not going to denounce injustice or oppression or atrocities or criminality. I'm just going to pretend that everything is great. And I'm going to think about transcendentalism, and I'm going to think about things that are safe and have nothing to do with the real struggles faced by real people every day. And I think Carlyle had a very great point here. I think he had a very great point. I think he's absolutely right. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't think he was saying, that a scholar or an intellectual is obligated to run around with signs on his chest, waving flags, shouting slogans at people. Although there's nothing wrong if someone wants to do that. That's fine. But he's not saying that you should undertake, self-destructive or foolish, enterprises. But what I think he is saying is that you have to say something. You have to stand for something. You have to let your value system be known in the most effective and constructive way possible. Because if you can't do that, the real question is, what good are you? If you pretend to be an intellectual, a scholar, or a writer, or a man who purports to speak to a wider audience, if you can't stand for something, what are you really? What are you really? So I just thought that was something to be mentioned. I think it's something that we all need to be reminded of, because we live in an era where it's very easy for people to hide. It's very easy for people to say, it's not my problem, it's not my concern, it's not my issue, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, I think it's contingent upon all of us. It's an obligation for all of us to try to find ways to make our voice heard. And each person is going to have to decide how he or how she wants to make their voices heard. But we must make them be heard. Because if you don't take charge of your destiny, if you don't make your value system known, if you don't assert yourself, if you don't stand up for what's right, if you don't call out rank injustices, then what good are you? What kind of person are you really? What kind of person are you really? So that's all. Until next time, I'm Quintus Curtius.